I'm Sister Kay. Welcome back to the channel. I have a prepping mystery for you. And I bet you I'm going to fool you when I first give you the facts and you get to guess what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a national disaster. I'm talking about something that affected lots and lots of people practically worldwide. It's in the 1930s time frame. Are you guys thinking Wall Street? Are you thinking how the crash came down? Nope, that's not it. Our country at that time frame, the 1930s to 40s, was a very vulnerable. I'm really quite surprised that nobody invaded us then, because Wall Street had financially ruined a big part of the country, and we were kind of weak then. But I'm talking about a totally different disaster that was going on. It was 10 years long. It affected 336 counties in our nation. It's a lot. It was 16 million acres alone in Texas. Just Texas, ruined. Farmland, unusable. Stock dead, you know, millions of dollars lost. No sheep, no cattle, no chickens. People died. People were displaced. Can you guess yet? It's the Dust Bowl. That's right, because there had been a 10-year drought in the middle of our country. And at the same time, concurrently happening, farmers had started using very modern methods of farming. Before this, they had been plowing with horses, and a farm was very self-sustainable. The horses had manure, you can put manure on the fields, etc., etc. Well, after World War I, the chemical companies have all these chemicals that they've been making and nowhere to use them because the war's over. And so they started looking at them for fertilizer and fuel for tractors and so on. And so you get farmers switching from horses to tractors and using things like, you know, the big discs that are, you know, 10 feet wide and plowing 4 and 5 rows at a time. And so what they've done is they're turning all this soil over, and the soil is drying out from the drought, and so we get the Dust Bowl. And there are these black storms. There are pictures online. I'll put a link in the description down there to, you know, just for whatever reason, with the heat and the drought and everything, you get all this movement, and the whole topsoil is being moved away, displaced. But that's not the totality of that disaster. You do get the displacement of the topsoil. But drought, I mean, drought is a terrible thing. And when we moved here, they had had a 3-year drought. When my daughter, and I'll put a link to her video too, moved west of us, they had had a 20-year drought. Just their area, local. It's not the whole part of the country. And when we moved here, the drought's over. When she moved there, the drought ends. The very next spring, it starts raining and raining and raining, and now there's grass, and the streams, which had been dry when I went out there, now have water running in them. And when we moved down to Shofar Mountain, there had been a drought there. And it was very hard to get hay. It's one of the reasons the horse I took down there ended up having a lot of health problems. Texas also. Texas was looking, people were looking online to buy hay for Texas from places like California and Montana. So drought can be very devastating on its own, but when you get, you know, like I said, plowing the topsoil and now your topsoil is gone, you have a problem there. But compounding that was the dust storms took that topsoil and deposited it in places where it normally wouldn't be. So there are pictures of places like Nebraska and New Mexico that have sand dunes in people's yards. We're talking the soil, the sand, the topsoil being deposited to cover a barn. 10 or 20 feet of topsoil. We're talking, I saw a picture of a lady who's trying to, she had a pond, like a well, and it had a little place where she had goldfish in it, and the whole thing is covered in sand. Like, the goldfish are obviously dead, and she's got to shovel out all of that dirt and stuff. I think the enormity of the natural disaster overwhelmed the people that were there. Just think about this. They didn't have any face masks. Just that alone, like, how did you protect yourself? You see tons of pictures of people like doing this and maybe putting their kerchiefs and stuff around their faces. There were no N95 masks. There were no Walmarts at the time. There's a photo of volunteers, and I think they were working for the Red Cross, making masks out of the cloth, you know, by the hundreds, because people who lived in the area really needed them. Some people smothered. You could smother in your sleep. The dust could settle over your whole house, and now there's no more air going in and out, and you could smother. The Red Cross at that time obviously was an organization, and it had, you know, helped during the war, but now it became much, much larger. There were meetings in Washington, D.C. about, you know, aid to the people out where the Dust Bowl happened. And some of those civilian help corps that Franklin Delano Roosevelt made, part of those organizations were in the Midwest trying to alleviate this problem. Some of the solutions they came up with was furrowing your soil to hopefully catch, you know, the topsoil that's drifting around. If you put some furrows, you know, and tall enough, it would make the dust settle there instead of like up against your fence line. They also looked at terracing the soil for the same reason. And if you're anywhere near farmland out in the Midwest, you can see results. That terracing is still there in some of the fields. There's terracing in our neighbor's field right across the street. And terracing in the field near us down in Shofar Mountain also. So swales and the permaculture idea has been around for a long time to catch water, but also to catch this drifting soil. And one of the conservation corps planted over 200 million trees in the devastated areas, you know, all the way from New Mexico up to Nebraska and beyond, in an attempt to stop the wind blowing and the soil blowing and everything. And it wasn't till 10 years later, so this is a 10-year drought. It finally rained in the 1939-40 season, and by then, with the furrowing and the terracing and the trees and everything, when the rain came, they were able to stabilize that area. Another side effect of that disaster was all the people living there, all those farmers moved, and so many of them went west. I'm not sure why they went west, maybe because they didn't have to cross the Mississippi. California became, you know, the land where everybody wanted to go. The weather's great. There's very fertile soil there, and so there's many pictures of people with their stuff in their wagon, you know, kind of like Jed Clampett moving to Beverly Hills. They piled everything they had in their wagons and hitched their mules or their horses or their oxen or whatever, and they went west. And that's what the whole book, Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, is based on. It's about a family that has to move west, and they became migrant workers doing the picking of the fields in California. So it's been going on for a long time. Of course, there are people who are now illegal aliens that they're doing the very same thing. But it starts, you know, it started long before that. And so the middle part of the country was kind of depopulated, and everyone became refugees. And now, you know, travel and the hardships of the road, people taking advantage of you and starving and trying to get enough money to buy food for yourselves and stuff, it's a thing. So these natural disasters can happen. And in my way of looking at things, the natural disasters are more likely to happen than the, you know, ultimate fall, like the EMP or the volcano exploding, Yellowstone or whatever. It's way more likely you're going to have a local area of devastation, like a fire or a flood or a mudslide or an earthquake. And if you think it can't happen now, I read a story about a man Gazette. It sounds like Narragansett, but it's a man Gazette. New York. They had a mini, like, Dust Bowl area in that part of a county. I think a man Gazette is a city, but their county was affected by a Dust Bowl thing, and they've got pictures of a family who had dust deposited all over their home, you know, 2 and 3 inches in their driveway. So drought can happen. Dust storms still happen out west. They aren't as big and as devastating as they were in the Dust Bowl, but they're there. So you want to look at this stuff. You want to be prepared. The whole point of being prepared is so when something like that happens, you're not caught off guard. You're not going to be able to stop the storm, but if you think about that storm coming, you can have preps like the masks, like food and water set aside, like a travel plan already in place. So should it happen to you, you're not, what's going on? So look up the Dust Bowl. It happened, it was very interesting, and we have lessons that we can learn from things like it. Thanks for watching. Bless you guys. Shalom.